welcome back to the Masters of Modern podcast. I'm your host, Neo, straight from the Matrix. Follow the rabbit, pick the red pill, the blue pill. There is no podcast with my co-host, Agent Smith, Mr. Ben Bateman.
What's going on? I should have worn all black with like the sunglasses and the tie. And we could have been.
Yeah, because you have the suit. You could pull the suit off real easy.
Could have been Agent Smith.
Whoa.
I can't do a very good Hugo Weaving. It's kind of incredible how powerful of a personality Hugo Weaving has actually been when it comes to like franchise movies. It's like kind of wonderful.
Yeah.
He's like the bad guy in the Matrix. He's the friggin' Red Skull.
He's kind of evil Ian McKellen.
Yeah, that's fair.
Where Ian McKellen was Gandalf, and then he was Magneto and all the other stuff he has, and on the reverse you have like Agent Smith and like Elrond and Red Skull, and like I would argue Elrond is kind of a good guy.
Kind of.
He's
out for the elves.
Yeah. But welcome to the Masters of Modern podcast. We are a modern podcast. We come up with new content every Monday, and either in podcast form on podcast apps everywhere, or on YouTube. If you're on the YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button right now. Just hit it, and because that's the thing to do. We'll play a trivia game in a second. Don't you worry. Before we do that, remember this entire process is brought to you by stuff like TCG Players affiliate link. If you go below, we're going to talk about a bunch of cards to buy today. It's the theme of the episode, and that link below, if you click on that when you're going to buy some of this stuff, we get a small amount of kickback. You don't pay anything extra. It remembers that we sent you as kind of a small advertising situation. It helps the podcast out a great deal. The other one is check our Patreon out. We have an awesome Patreon where you get the episode a whole week early. If you want to, you can still go listen to, even if you listen to the rest of this here, if you go back to the Patreon, you get a entire section on a review of Ted Lasso Season 2 and the cultural relevance of The Matrix versus Dark Knight. It's all in there, exclusive to patrons, and definitely recommend checking it out. You get it just for the, whatever fee you pay on there. Everyone gets it. And we are today talking about cards you should be buying in Modern. Basically, we've just gone through a rotation. We just had 2 Modern sets. The format's been flipped on its head. Not to mention Time Spiral Remastered, one of the most powerful years of Magic rotated out of Standard into Modern. And so there's a lot of stuff moving around. And we thought there's just like an interesting time to talk about a bunch of different possible options to pick up. Like now's a good time to pick them up. We're in a few weeks, we're trying to also do an episode on like how to start getting into Modern. And this is a great first step to that on like what cards right now are a good investment and are like criminally undervalued at the moment.
Yeah, I think there's 2 reasons. That I think the first one is we are in this flex point where within 6 months, the world will be back to a place where we're going to large events again. We sort of are almost there now, but I think within 6 months, there will start to be more. And within a year, I think we'll probably be going to lots of events again. And it's already happening on some level, but as more and more of that happens and more things open up, there will be more paper Modern played, which was always classically what made the format such a powerhouse. And so I think as that happens, this bubble of cards that came out that I think make Modern pretty approachable financially in a lot of ways, it's going to inflate like crazy. A year from now, you're going to look back at the prices we're going to talk about today, and I guarantee you like 70 or 80% of these cards will have doubled.
Right. And we're in a little bit of an interesting space, right? This episode is coming out in the second week of October. The last week of October at SEG Con, there's a Modern tournament on the SEG tour. Last week we had Zach Allen on and we talked a lot about like what the metagame looks like. And then 3 weeks later, there's the Channel Fireball Vegas event that's happening that is also going to have a major Modern tournament. So that's 2 paper Modern tournaments for the first time in 2 years happening over the next month. And if you look at the Flesh of Blood event, you look at Gen Con, you look at even PAX and Dragon Con, these type of things are coming back, and this type of paper tournament hasn't happened in a while. So the metagame could shift a great deal because we're going to move away from Moto-based metagames. And on top of that, there's just going to be a refocus on Modern in a way that hasn't really happened in a while. Add that to us looking at, we're in a weird moment right now. TCG collectibles in general are a little bit in a bubble. And I don't know if that's a bubble in the sense that it's going to pop, but just across the board, if you look at Pokemon cards, Yu-Gi-Oh cards, any type of collectible item, there's a lot of money going into inflating it. And some of that is the fact that because these conventions haven't happened, the ability to buy collections has been reduced pretty significantly. And so there's a little bit of a back and forth on like what people's dollars are going to go into or where people can get cards. So cards get inflated in price. But with that all being said, there's a lot of sets printed in the last 2 years, a lot of powerful cards, and we're excited to go through that. Before that, Ben, I have some trivia for you.
Yes, and before the trivia, I actually have something else that I'd like to throw to first.
Right.
I think there are 2 parts to this episode, as you mentioned a second ago. So you guys are going to hear this. Be sure you look out in the near future of the episode Alex talked about, which is the How to Get Into Modern episode, because ultimately, getting into Modern, you will want to buy some cards, and some of the cards we're going to talk about today are exactly those cards. So it's they dovetail into each other nicely, and be sure you keep your eyes on the lookout for part 2. The other thing is, I am releasing an album of original music on the 2nd of December. It's the first time in my entire life I have spent a year with different producers, writing, recording, and getting ready this record. It's 5 songs. It means a lot to me. And the newest one, called Happiness, actually dropped today. You guys are hearing this podcast, 3rd single, Happiness, dropped today. It's all over the place. Apple, it's on iTunes. That's not a thing anymore. Apple Music, Amazon Music, YouTube Music, Spotify, of course. And you can buy the song if you want, but check it out. It means a lot to me, guys. I'm really trying to blow this one up. I'm going on the radio to promote this as well here in LA. There's a bunch of cool stuff behind it. So check it out. Go follow me on Spotify. It would mean a whole lot to me. And hopefully I'll be able to see some of you guys on tour and play some shows for you and all that stuff going forward. So I think without further ado, I'm down. Let's get into it, Alex. Trivia, hit me.
All right, this is rated as a difficulty level 4. And for those who are joining this podcast for the first time in recent months, we play a new game every episode. It's at the beginning. I'm going to read a piece of trivia off, and you're making a bet. You, the audience. I'm going to read some trivia. You're going to comment below with what you think the answer to that trivia is. And if you know, great. If it's a guess, go for it. But we're making a bet. And if you get it wrong, you have to hit the like button. There's a like button down there. If you get it wrong, you hit the like button. If you get it right, then feel free to just enjoy the win. Keep that W. Maybe brag about it in the comments. And then, if you want to hit the like, we wouldn't mind. Either way, hit that subscribe button. All right, Ben. And Ben's going to hit me off for a second to give you time to go down and comment. This is rated as a level 4 difficulty on the trivia scale.
Rock and roll.
And which year is the only year where 0 changes happened to the ban and restricted list in all of Magic?
I have to know the actual calendar year that no changes happened to the ban and restricted list in Magic's history?
Yeah.
Oh my God. This is an insane question. This is like difficulty level like 15.
It could have been a 4 at a 4-star scale. I just have difficulty 4. It doesn't say what it's out of.
Okay. This is difficulty 5. Let's see. Okay, use my brain here. So stable Magic, no bans. Couldn't have been the 2nd year. They would have revised the game. Tournament play started in like 95 or 4 or something like that. It was like the 2nd year. I don't think it's a recent year because there's always changes. It might have been during that dead time, the like Onslaught Legion Scourge time, which would make it. It was 2003, I think. So Onslaught Legion Scourge was the set before. So 2002.
Is that your final answer?
Yes.
Well, that's amazing. Yes. The answer is 2002. for someone who hemmed and hawed about how difficult that was, you walked your way right into the answer there. Yeah, so 2002 is the only year.
I have competed and won the world championship in movie trivia, so I do have a logical brain that's good with years. That SG kind of is remarkable, I'll be honest. It was a blind guess, but
no, you found like the right location it would have happened. You picked the right card. Like the other dead time, which is like the Homelands era. Cards were still legal from sets that were old enough that were just so much more powerful than the new cards that they had to ban stuff. So, and
I think they banned Jester's Cap, I'm pretty sure. So I think that was that era.
And so and then Urza's Block and there's a bunch of powerful stuff after that. But you got it. You hit and then Mirrodin happened, then Kamigawa happened, and Ravnica happened.
Yeah, set got real powerful. It had to be the year before. Mirrodin, because obviously they banned like 1 million cards.
All right. So that is trivia. Now, remember, if you commented below correctly, you don't have to hit the like button. You win. You beat us. we're sorry. But if you didn't comment correctly or you didn't know the answer, you have to hit that like button. It's super appreciated. It makes this episode do better. So really, you're helping us help you help us. All right. First thing we're going to talk about on the list, and just to like briefly read off the categories, we got lands, we got cards from Eldraine, we got cards from Theros, we got Ikoria, we got Time Spot Remastered, and we have the Modern Horizons of the world. And so we're going to start with lands.
Let's start with lands.
Without looking it up, Ben, continuing our trivia fun, how much would you say a Scalding Tarn costs right now if you were to buy the cheapest option on TCG Player using our affiliate link below?
Now, well, classically, it's the most expensive fetch, and it peaked at one point at like 100 and whatever. It was down to like 70 for a long time, and then I think I saw it drop all the way down into the 30s. I don't think it's gone up too much. I'll bet you the TCG Player low on it right now is like $39.
$31.
Wow, even cheaper than I thought. $31.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Verdant Catacombs, $21. Arid Mesa, $17. So now's a good time to buy fetch lands. Now, it sucks because fetch lands being cheap still is like $15 plus cards, but the fact that you can get, outside of the blue ones, play sets of all the fetches you could ever need out of the enemy fetches for less than $100, right? Like, these a pretty big, which has never happened in modern, like in modern history, that has not existed as an opportunity. And so you're now living in a world where you can pick those up. The last time fetches were reprinted, which I believe was like, I want to say Iconic Masters, but they weren't in Iconic Masters.
No, it was in Modern Masters.
Modern Masters 2.
No,
3?
They weren't in 2.
3.
No, it was Modern Masters 3 in 2017.
Yeah.
That was the last time.
They got to the 40s range, and then it was like, oh, they'll be down to 40 forever. And literally within 6 months, they were back up to the $60 price point. So
that was a great set. So the 2017 one, you could open fetches, Snapcaster, like I think Liliana maybe. It was a really good set.
Yep. So that's kind of the first thing. For those who don't know, fetch lands are the basis for lands in Modern and pretty much any format that can play them. They're banned in Pioneer partially because it would make the format too similar to Modern and Legacy. And like they classically just have been really expensive. And yes, the fact that $30 for Scalding Tarns is the cheapest you'll ever get them is like frustrating to some extent, but it is still the time. The time was like 3 weeks ago, and if it's not 3 weeks ago, it's now. And as soon as these modern tournaments start hitting and people start getting excited and noticing it, they'll become more expensive. Interestingly enough, I
was going to say also on the subject of those lands, the etched foil printings that they released in Horizons 2 with the old border, for some weird reason, the community reacted without a lot of demand to those cards. But that's insane. And within a couple years, they're very cool looking. They're unique. They have the old border. They're foil. They'll be in high demand, and they're not much more expensive than the regular cards. Like if you're talking $31 for a Scalding Tarn, I think like the retro etched foil is like probably $41. They're really barely more.
So Misty Rainforest framed retro is about $33. Where a Modern Horizons 2 regular is $24.
It's crazy. I mean, that to me is probably, of all the things I've seen that have come out of Horizons that have affected the format, that's got to be the craziest one. If you told me there's going to be etched foil, old border, fetches available in the set, like I know we all opened a lot of the set. Don't get me wrong. I opened 2 boxes, but like these are staples, and what a unique, cool printing process. I think that's just a steal of a deal.
Yep. And one thing I will say is, and we're going to talk about this a little later about the difference between full art versions of these cards and like the full frame versions of the cards versus like regular printings. In other sets that are old enough to start seeing kind of the like the reaction to these different types of printings, full art versions of cards are more expensive. Right now, Misty Rainforest extended art is basically as expensive as just like a regular Misty Rainforest from Modern Horizons 2.
So crazy.
And like it's like I think it's 28 versus 33. And like they both have like $29.99 in the lows, right? So like, I think like it's crazy how cheap these are. Now, an interesting fact and reaction to this though is that if you go to the cons fetches or the allied colored fetches, Polluted Delta, etc., Flooded Strand, those are now the more expensive option. So Flooded Delta is now $40. Flooded Stream is about the same as a Misty Rainforest. So they've kind of evened out. And one thing I will say on those is I would not be surprised if we see a printing of the enemy fetches in some significant way within the next 3 years. I think in the allied ones. I think we might be waiting for enemies again. I think it might be another 5 years. But I think allied we are going to be printed soon. So I would say buy in if you can to enemy fetches, the Zendikar fetches, but I would wait on the allied ones. And the thing
is good advice. Yeah.
And the thing with fetches is like the margins of power level you miss by playing slightly off color or slightly weighted wrong fetches in your mana base matters, but not a lot.
Marginal. Yeah.
Like if you have one full set of either area of fetch lands, or even just all of the ones that are not blue, you can get away with a lot of mana bases, and just like you're going to be taking a little bit of damage when you want to cast 1-drop blue spells. But like, especially in like Jeskai, you could just have like the white red, four of the white red ones to make sure you hit your Ragavans and friends early, and like,
yeah, for sure.
Skimp on the blue red and the blue white ones.
They're probably the most stable. I mean, not talking reserve lists. They're probably the most stable Magic investment you can possibly make. They're always in demand. They're good in every format. The floor on these things will never totally bottom out. They never go out of style. So like you can buy them comfortably knowing they'll go up, they'll go down, they'll go up, they'll go down, but you will never, ever, ever have these things drop to like $2. You just lose your money. Like you're putting cash into something that you'll be able to get money out of.
Agreed. The next category is shocks. So after just recently a secret layer was launched with the shocks from them. And with that kind of being released into the market, now is the time to kind of buy shocks again. They like had gone above 20. They're now much closer to that $15 average, to $15 to $12. Sorry, $15 to $10 range. And it's another one that just like these two cards together make up the modern metagame mana base, and picking up shocks right now is a less expensive way to buy into the format, right? These will go back up to the plus $20 amount, especially because secret layers seem to be only a blip on the radar when it comes to printing, like the price variance. And so now's the time to kind of pick those up, see what you can get, and then kind of move off to building that collection that way.
Have you been satisfied with your secret layers that you've purchased to this point?
Yes. Not all of them, but I think some of the earlier ones when I was like, I'm buying a lot of this, I'm like less happy with, but like some of the later ones, yeah, super happy. I like love these full art ones.
Those are awesome. I think
like all of the movie postery ones.
I just think the secret layer was such a cool. The creation was super cool. The execution and how they sell direct is like less cool, but I think that the cards themselves are awesome.
I like that they're printing niche cards for niche people.
Yeah.
And the fact that a lot of the time, a lot of the secret layers have now gone up in price post printing makes it so it actually is even valuable for stores to buy them. The next two are a little bit, or the next one is probably the third in that era of like expensive, but like I don't know where they print these anytime soon, and that's the Horizon lands.
Okay, sure.
These are in
the draw card land.
Yeah, they are in the $20 range, so they're between shock lands and fetch lands, but they are a staple of the format. They're only going to get better. Like they're still very powerful, especially as like the format gets faster in like combo lines that like life loss becomes less important, and so like Renin 6 is still very powerful. And because of Luros decks, because decks want to play lower to the ground, being able to mitigate mana flooding is more and more important. They are just really powerful, and they don't have a lot of easy reprint locations. Do they reprint it in a Modern Horizons? Do they reprint it in Secret Layer or something? But all those we've kind of talked about don't really affect prices too heavily. So I think they're pretty good as a pickup.
Yeah, I mean, when these came out, Alex, I can remember telling you these are going to be this is the investment. This is the one you should get. And I bought myself like play sets, most of them. I held on to them for a couple of years, and they never went up. And when I sold all my stuff to buy the hummingbird behind me here, I think I probably got less money for them than I paid because they hadn't moved. But they've all finally started to move north of $10 more than they were when I had them, and that was just last October. These ones to me are just a no brainer. I think you're dead right. Like they're everybody always liked Horizon Canopy because it's such a great way to get out of flooding. Now they keep printing interesting and cool lands that are very powerful that make a total, they make a strong argument to be in your deck. So cards like these are a pretty simple trick, but they are double color. They do come into play untapped. You can use them the turn they come into play, and they have great late game value. So from a play patterns like place, and also, I mean, this is something to add. We'll talk about this when we get into the whole getting into modern episode, but like if you want to get into modern and build something of your own, like you want to build a homebrew that you think is really cool, these cards are really hard to miss when you put them in a homebrew like that, because it just gives your deck more and more options as the game goes on, which is great usually for homebrew decks that are trying to get like something out of the format, because you're obviously doing something that is not a common idea. And so when that thing stalls out, as it inevitably often does, you will have utility in your lands, which is really great.
No, yeah, and the other thing we want to kind of bring up as we're doing this is the lands that we're bringing up now, or cards that we bring up now, are cards that we think there is potential of it becoming more expensive in the future, which is why buying them now is a good idea. We could talk about fast lands, but I also think we're going back to Mirrodin sometime in the next 2 years, so I don't think you should buy fast lands. You should probably buy Kaladesh fast lands, I guess, but like definitely not the Scars of Mirrodin ones. The next land on that note, though, and these are dirt cheap, Pathways. You can buy the most expensive pathway is $8, and most of them are within the $4 range. And those are
fantastic lands. They're so good.
Yeah, they're like maybe one of the most powerful cycles of lands ever printed. It's impossible to keep track of which pathway is which pathway. But and it's annoying when I want to look for Path to Exile now in any type of deck search app because all the pathways show up first. But they are just super powerful, super versatile, will always be good. And I like, as far as mana bases in modern go, from a budget perspective, you could go a pretty long way just with a pathway based mana base. So I think it's definitely worth picking up playsets of the whole stack of them.
I'm pretty sure that's exactly what I said when they first got printed. I think I said to you, these are so good. If you use all of these together in a single format, I feel like you'll probably be able to play 2 and 3 color decks pretty consistently without much struggle, and maybe as good as 5 color decks potentially. I think if you can't afford shocks and fetches, you can do a pretty good impersonation with these cards. I really think like if the most expensive one is $8, so the average maybe is like $6 or something like that. So it's like what, 24 times 5? No,
I think like the average is like $3.
So if the average,
like most of them are $2, and like 1 or 2 of them are $8.
And there's 10 of them, or there's 5 of them?
10.
There's 10 of them. I mean, if the average is, let's say the average is $5, and you want 4 each, right? It's $200 gets you the entire mana base, the whole thing, 4 of all of them. That's nuts.
And you'll use them forever. Yep.
Yeah, they're very good.
And then if you're willing to go a little bit more, you can get the full art versions or one full art. What I've been doing is I have a full art foil of each one that I like have to the side. You can see some of them right here in like clear sleeves. So, and I use those as like the back side when I'm playing them, so that you don't have to take them out of the sleeve. So I like bought a play set of foil full arts, and then I have a bunch of the cheap regular ones that I just throw in decks. All right. And then the last land I want to talk about today, Cycle, is Triomes.
Really?
Yeah.
The cycling 3 color lands?
The cycling 3 color lands. First off, they're seeing like they're in modern, they're going to be a 1 of generally, but they're seeing play as 1 ofs, having access to 3 colors that you can cycle for and you can fetch for is just really powerful still. Late game, you can cycle them. They're great with stuff like Ren 6, but also the ceiling is really high on them because they are just basically every single commander deck that is 3 or more colors will play at least 1.
Yeah, that's
moving
fair.
forward.
They have that going.
Commander deck. So they are a modern card. It is a modern card that if you have fetch lands is very good. That then also has upside by being a staple in Commander. And through rotation, they're worth doing. They're all about $10 right now, and it's kind of a perfect time to buy in. Plus, you have the alternate art comic book versions, which are gorgeous, and they're not $10. That much more expensive.
I have a foil full art one that I opened when I opened that box of Ikoria for our Commander draft.
Nice.
That's pretty sweet.
So that is the lands part of the conversation. Any other lands you want to shout out real quick before we get on to modern Horizon themed conversations?
I think you covered the ones that are essential, because the ones you talked about are all high in value. So I don't think that there's a whole lot of likelihood that those are going to go down really.
Mm-hmm.
I know Celestial Colonnade is kind of low right now.
Oh, I do have Celestial Colonnade, but that is not in the land section. You're right. Celestial Colonnade is $5. In fact,
that was $40 at one point. I think Celestial Colonnade is just gonna. I mean, blue white or blue white X will always be a deck in Modern, a control deck. By no means a beginner deck, but it will always be a deck that people will play. And those colonnades are such an important part of that deck. I mean, they're just hugely important.
I think like one of the reasons they're low right now is that the blue-white control decks aren't playing more than one, right? They're like playing one and they're playing Castle Vantresses, which I was going to get to. I guess I was going to wait for the castles until we got to Eldraine. So I guess we're doing all lands. We can talk about castles as well. But Celestial Colonnade just like is only seeing one of and two of play. But like you can get the what's it called versions.
Were they Friday night?
No, the buy a box. No, it was the
buy a box from.
No. They're like I can't. The Expedition. There's Expedition Celestial Colonnades from Zendikar Rising that are like gorgeous, and they're like $8.
Jeez.
Like so, like I think that's a great pickup, to be honest, because I agree with you. I don't think there's ever going to be a time where Celestial Colonnades aren't dope. I
do think the one thing to say about that, just to caution players who were like they were 40 once, I'll buy them for 5. Eventually, they'll be back to 40. I do think the power level of Colonnade and the fact that it comes into play tapped is started to play against it just a little bit in terms of its value in a Modern deck. I think Modern is so absurdly fast now that playing 4 tap lands in a deck like that is a gigantic sacrifice you make. It means you have no other opportunity really to play a tap land, and you have hands where you're going to draw 2 lands. They're both going to be colonnades, and that's going to be really rough. So I do think maybe it's a little outclassed power-wise at this point, but it can't be a bad buy at 5. There's no way you lose money on that.
Yeah, I think having them to play with, and as we talked about, if you wanted to go more of a value orient or like a budget version of a blue-white control deck, going with pathways and colonnades and other like lands that are a little bit more budget friendly isn't going to be a terrible way to go as well to get started. And the colonnade will always be somewhat playable, and that's why I was kind of pointing at the Expedition version, because it is special. And a little bit rare, and it's like being decreased now because of the cost of Celestial Colonnade, but probably will go up in the long run. And then the last land cycle, as I already closed out lands, but we're doing it again, is the castles. So the castles from Eldraine just rotated out. We were just talking about Celestial Colonnade, which at one point, as Ben said, was a $40 card, and it currently is seeing multiple copies, two cards being played in blue-white control decks, with Colonnade only playing 1. And same rarity, only $3, or only $1.50 for 1. And I only see upside with buying castles.
I mean, they're very good. They became a complete staple in the entirety of Standard while they were getting played, and they already started to creep into Modern. The blue one's great. The blue one is just great to have in a like late game situation when you have tons of mana. It's just such a good dig me out card.
Yeah, the blue, the black, and the green one are the 3 that I would be picking up. The green one is just like a ramp spell on a land. Once you get the turn 6, lets you cast Primeval Titans on turn 5, and there'll be weird decks that want to play that in the future. The black one is not as much a Modern staple, but is a Commander staple, so it's not a bad pickup as well. And then the blue one is seeing play everywhere. I think the blue ones are extremely powerful, and the fact that you can get copies for like less than $2 is an insane option.
The red one is creatures get +1/+0, and the white one makes a soldier.
Correct.
Or human or something. Yeah, I think the blue one is the best one. I don't think the rest of those are going to go up as much. Maybe the black one, like you said, for Commander. I can see that.
Well, the green one sees a ton of play in Commander too, and Pioneer. So I think the green and the black one are both like total easy buys. And I think the green one is right now actually the most expensive one.
What about Prismatic? No, never mind. Yeah, so I think that is the last land we were going to talk about.
That is it for lands. We're now on to Modern Horizons. So the overall conversation here, more important than anything, is: do I think Modern Horizons, and do you think Modern Horizons 2 cards are going to go down anytime soon? Or Modern Horizons 1 cards?
Horizons 1, we've had a few years. So I think Horizons 1 cards are probably going to stay pretty close to where they are, unless you'll probably see specific cards spike. But I think that in general, Horizons 1 has probably had enough time that you have a good sense of what the median card's going to be. I think something like an Urza could keep going up. I think there are certain cards that are iconic, maybe, that will keep going up, but I don't think it's going to fluctuate that much. Horizons 2 is really interesting because I think it was opened pretty aggressively, right? People really like that set. I know a lot of people
there wasn't a Grand Prix that played with them. The Paper Magic wasn't happening in stores, so there wasn't a lot of drafting. People bought boxes, but I don't know if actually it was heavily opened. It was successful, all things said, because we're in the world of COVID, but I don't think it was bought it wasn't opened in a way that Modern Horizons 1 was, to be honest.
Horizons 2 is a bananas powerful level set. It's one of the most powerful sets of all time. It's kind of actually a shockingly powerful set. So I think Horizons 2 cards will go up, not down. I don't think there's any Horizons 2 card that's going to go down. Do you?
Outside of bans, a Ragavan ban, Dragon Ray Channeler ban, etc., I agree. I think we're looking at I think the bottom was in the middle of preview season for some of these cards and immediately afterwards. I think some cards will fluctuate. There's random stuff that might over time go down. Does Ennoble Hierarch just not see play with Ragavan legal, or does Jundex not play it? Maybe. I don't think that's true. I think that card's really good. So
Esper Sentinel, does it have an ideal home yet? Or
right. There's the problem is it's Modern Horizons 2's expensive cards aren't going to go anywhere. It's Modern Horizon 2's $5 cards are the one that there's maybe a lot of money to make. You just go all in, for instance, on Crashing Footballs, and you made a bunch of money if you went all on Crashing Football, because before Modern Horizons 2, that card was bad. Wasn't seeing any play. And then the right cards got printed for it to be now a staple of the format. Great. That's kind of where it is. On the other hand, there's that Shinobi, the Changeling, the blue-white Changeling from Modern Horizons 1. There's a bunch of cards that you could have gone in on at $5 and are not seeing any play. So it's hard. I do think it's really hard to know for those sets. I think some are really easy. I think the fact that Prismatic Ending right now is a $4 card when it's better than Path to Exile probably ever was, and Path to Exile was a $10+ card for years, is easy. Buy Prismatic Endings at $4, or if you can get them for $3, great, and just hold on to them, or buy foils and hold on to them forever, right?
Right.
That's a card, unless Wizards starts printing them in. The cool thing about Prismatic Ending is it has a mechanic on it that is not easy to reprint anywhere. Right, you don't have the ability to
the color thing. How many colors were spent to pay its cost?
Yeah, that ability is not a keyword. It's keyworded, so it can't really show up on random planes. So it's not going to ever be in standard, because that ability is never going to come back. It is not popular. That's why it's in Modern Horizons as heavily as it is, because they're we liked this card mechanically, but no one liked it in standard. And so that's an easy option, right? I think that beyond that, just there's a lot of cards that are just making a bet. I think that's my I think they're right. Buy, if Ragavan doesn't get banned, you should buy them now.
I mean, it's really good. I checked the other day, and my full art foil that I opened in that box, it's more expensive than it was even then. It's $175 now.
Right.
That's insane.
Yeah.
I could sell that thing on eBay and pay for almost the cost of the box.
Right. And that's kind of the weird thing. In some ways, buying sealed product is maybe what's worth it in the Modern Horizons world.
I was going to say, if you can still get sealed boxes for decent prices, I think that's where your money's at. Because the thing is, the epically expensive cards from Horizons 2, the ones that are going to go just crazy, it's going to be full art foil Ragavan, or it'll be showcase foil, or special sketch showcase, whatever that was called, of the Delve guy that's all over blue red right now. The
Murktide Regent.
Yeah, Murktide. It'll be the special foil version of Murktide Regent. It'll be, there'll be 3 or 4 cards that'll be $300 in a couple years. And so then you're going to look at the price of a sealed box, and everyone's going to know there's a possibility that pack fresh, foil, full art Ragavan or something is in there, and you get even more money for the box. I think if you can get value on buying a box of Horizons 2, I would do that in a second.
Right.
There's no way that goes down.
I do think Urza's Saga isn't going anywhere. That seems to have calmly saved itself. The decks that it's good in are also pretty value oriented. We're going to talk about Primeval Titan in a second. So I think there's other cards that are easy to grab from this set that were really hyped. As Mordecai is a good example. Like if they print more food cards anywhere, I think that card gets better, right? Like there's cards that were on the verge. The elementals seem to have come down a little bit. Like the Red Fury, I think is a good pickup right now. Endurance and Solitude are really hard. The black one I actually think is maybe not a bad pickup because it is seeing a lot of play, but it's like a little bit, hated on because of how high people were on that effect when it was first printed and how actually kind of mediocre it was. So like looking at the set, being smart about it, I think is a fine option. But I do think it kind of is interesting, just like how these cards have ended up being weird in the format. But yeah, so that's where I'm kind of at on the Horizon sets. I think for both of them, some of these cards are just never going to be like printing all these cards all at once is going to be really hard, and just finding out the right ones that you don't think could be standardly. Like Archmage's Charm is already $20, but if you look at other rares from that set, it can go farther up. So they're kind of the big barrier to entry of this format. But the ones I would look at are the ones that are being played in multiple decks, like Urza Saga or Urza, and then figuring out what decks you want to play and then buying into those.
God, you could have gotten rich on Archmage's Charm. That card was getting tossed around for months as a nothing card. It was a while before people started playing with it. Now it's like a format defining card. It's really good.
Yep, I think it needed Counterspell.
Yeah, maybe.
It needed something less expensive than it that was good in the format that made it worthwhile playing it as well. But yeah, no, it's crazy. All right, so that's it. Unless you have anything else on the world of Modern Horizons to talk about. Obviously, if you guys have any cool cards that you think would be a good pickup for Modern Horizons, comment below. We do want to hear that. But 5, the next section is going to be we're going to go to the rotation. So Eldraine. So that's really the big part. And we're at the halfway point of the episode, so great moment. Rotation is classically one of the best times to buy the cards. Now, it is always sometimes a little late. Often the best time to buy into a rotating format card staples is like during the core set release. So like when AFR was being released would be a perfect time to buy these cards, because often it's a lame duck standard format. People are trying to sell it at that point, or there's not a lot of standard going on because they don't want to feature it because it is such a weird moment. But we're still in there. There's still a bunch of staples from Eldraine. Like I'm going to read, like these are all cards that are really great. Emery, $3. Gilded Goose, $3. Bone Crusher, the like altered art, which is a staple right now. Zing Bay in one of the best or multiple of the best decks, $2. Wishclaw Talisman, like that card will eventually be broken in Modern and is a extraordinarily powerful CDH card and EDH card, $2. Charming Prince, which like pound for pound one of the best Blink cards ever printed, super versatile, has a chance of being really great in Modern as well, less than $2. The Castles, which we mentioned before, $5 on average, right? Like these are all Modern staples or potential Modern staples and dirt cheap. Last but not least, which is like probably the most expensive important card to buy, Brazen Borrower, $14.
That's crazy. That's gonna be $60 in a couple of years.
Like Vendilion Click was a comparable card, $70 card.
Yeah, that card is so good. Borrower, I think at this point I'm convinced that Borrower's better. I think it's a better card.
Oh, pound! I think easy. It's a better card. I'm just like, it's a similar slot. You play somewhere between 2 and 4 of them. Powerful three mana mythic, and your point is correct. I think it's way better than Vendilion Click, and Vendilion Click was $70.
Yeah, Click has value in the sense that it allows you to wash away one of your own cards if you need to.
Mm-hmm.
So that there is some difference. It's not like a strictly better Vendilion Click. Well, I do think that Click is.
I think it's not strictly better, but the argument that it's better is that what Vendilion Click does is less useful, less often than bouncing any permanent.
Yeah, for sure.
Drawing your card, right? Yeah, I don't like Emery. Emery is a card that I think has always been overshadowed by the fact that Urza exists. Like Emery came out, and then 6 months later, Urza came out, and that was when that deck started being a thing. And Emery was always like, "I'm also here," but sees as a 4 of in every deck that is Urza. Not every deck that Urza is in, but a lot of decks that Urza is in, Emery is in there hanging out as a 4 of. And this card is really, really powerful, and is going to continue to be really powerful. And it's funny to me that this card, that I would argue is maybe one of the most powerful cards ever printed, like top 200, not top 10. just like is that good, but then Urza, which is better by magnitudes, was printed so soon afterward that we forget that Emery is there being like artifact Snapcaster Mage.
Emery's like, yeah, I mean, Emery's so good. And like, I can remember Emery getting previewed and us talking about it. Like,
well, and Luros was printed too, I guess. So like Luros and Urza together are making Emery like sad because it's like, I was so good. And then these strictly better versions exist, but I still think Emery's really powerful.
Yeah, just like so much value.
Yeah, no, I think like and Bone Crusher Giant sees a ton of play in the Cascade decks, like the ability to be a 2-mana removal spell. Also, the damage percentage clause on Bone Crusher Giant is like super underrated. The amount of times you like get someone who's used some type of fog effect, like using Bone Crusher Giant and Commander against the Fairy Protection is one of the most thoroughly enjoyable experiences I've ever been able to pull off. And like that type of effect exists in Modern as well. And it's such a useful ability to make sure, like out of burn decks, make sure that people don't have a way to stop you from winning the game against them.
You're saying damage can't be prevented?
Yeah, the damage
clause.
That clause. And yeah, no, I think just like picking up all of these Eldraine staples and multiples is going to treat you very well.
The one that stands out to me is definitely, well, I mean, there's a lot, but Wishclaw Talisman stands out to me in a huge way. I've used that card a few times now in a few different brews. I've played it in CDH, I've played it in EDH. It's a really powerful card. You can time it and do all kinds of cool stuff with it that is just very, very, very good. I was playing, speaking of Borrower, I was playing a deck with like 4 Borrowers and Wishclaw Talismans, and it's super fun. You play Wishclaw, you get your card, it goes to them before they can use it, you borrow it back to your hand. Now because they control it, and then you just replay it, and then you have your Borrower. It's like a really, really, really good, just like a good combination.
Oh, yeah. Why? Oh, I'm also looking at Midnight Haunt. I was like, why? I'm trying to look at what the other most expensive cards. Like the Great Henge is always just going to be super expensive. I think that one's really hard. Oko is like a card that's not super playable. Embercleave is already $18, and Questing Beast, which is $15. I don't think either of them are going to ever be super big staples in Modern. So that's kind of why we weren't pointing at them. But Brazen Borrow is the most expensive at a market price of $14 and a low at $9. Is like a great pickup, right? And like there's continued stuff. Even stuff like Ayara, the First of Lockwayne, is a super powerful effect that if there's ever a mono black Devotion Aristocrats list that gets printed because enough cards get printed into it, this card becomes a very, very, very important piece to that. Stonecoil Serpent as the X mana 0/0 is like
protection from multicolored, right?
The best X mana artifact that isn't that you can cast regularly. I mean, with Walking Bliss in the format and with
Hangerback Walker.
Hangerback Walker. Thank you. Walking Bliss and Hangerback Walker. It's the third best, but there are a lot of decks that have existed in an egg type shell that wants just as many of these as possible, and this is an option there. And just, yeah, I don't like it's just as far as a format deck goes, like Standard sucked for so long because Eldraine exists, because it was so powerful that new cards just weren't playable, and we now live in a world where those cards are now the cheapest they'll ever be. Hushbringer is also, on this list. You have stuff like Rankle. You have stuff like not Once Upon a Time. That card isn't legal in any format. Robber of the Rich, right? Like there's just all of these really powerful cards that, like we've talked about before. Feasting Troll King is a card that was seeing Modern play earlier this season in food decks.
Yeah, I do agree with you, and I think that a lot of the stuff you mentioned, one of the cards you mentioned there does stand out to be its Hushbringer. I think Hushbringer is a card that's going to be one of those sneaky cards you're going to look back in like 2 years, and it's going to be like $13 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to have just become like one of the standard cards that people play in like certain hate style decks, or it's, that card is built to be good. That card is built to just be a format defining card in its color at a certain point, because it's taking advantage of like a lot of the most powerful things that anything does.
Right.
And it's like one of the best versions of that I've ever seen. So I'll bet you Hushbringer is a great pickup.
Yeah. Even stuff like Drown in the Loch is only is $2, right? Like, yeah, I think this set is like ripe with reprints and definitely recommend it. So the next set we're going to talk about is Theros block. And Theros, when I looked through it, I was like, oh, damn. Right. Like Ikoria and Eldraine are often heralded as these giant power sets, and like Theros is kind of forgotten in the middle. But then when you look at it, you're like, oh, right, this is the set with Thassa's Oracle, Dryad of the Elysian Grove, Underworld Breach, Ox of Agnos. Even something like Woe Strider is like around $1 right now. I would buy 50 of those. I'd recommend that to anyone. Like, that card is going to be worth so much money in TAT 5, unless it gets reprinted in every Commander product ever printed. Woe Strider is in that type of card position. If it doesn't get printed, if it somehow gets forgotten because Escape is weird, that card will be worth like $10 easy in 3 years.
Don't we also have Uro and
Yeah. Sorry, those were the cards that were like under 10, like affordable, that were powerful. Yeah, Uro and Kroxa, they're both, Uro's banned in Modern. Kroxa's a $40 card now. Kroxa like already shot up. You've already missed. That's another card that if you had bought a bunch of them when they were like $8, you would have
made a lot of money.
But even Shadow Spear is a card that I think is like highly underrated. It's super powerful. It's like sees tons of play in Modern out of Hammer decks or anything with Stoneforge Mystic as a sideboard option, and as a commander, like a future commander staple. I did a Power 9 of equipment on Twitter a while back, based on the conversation we had on the stream, and like I had Shadow Spear on that list, and it wasn't the one people were pointing out being like, does that belong? it was like,
it's cheap and really powerful. I mean, I think most people imagine you have like, GT and you have cranial plating and you've got skull clamp and you've probably got one of the swords at least, if not two of the swords. You start to get past those key ones, those main ones, and yeah, the power level drops pretty far off to a lot of old equipment and then just like a lot of like uncommon equipment that shows up for draft. But I mean, a card like Shadow Spear it's so cheap. Did Collar make your list? I imagine Basilisk Collar is probably on there.
No.
Didn't make it, huh?
No, it was the bubble. I don't have it on me. We don't have to do that in this episode. I posted it on Twitter. We can do that another time.
All right.
But yeah, I mean, like Heliod's up there, like, right. Kroxa's 18 to 20. Heliod's around $20 as well. Dryad of the Elysian Grove full art is around that $20 price point. But like Heliod and Kroxa are both like cards to like pick them up now, because I don't think they're going to be reprinted anytime soon. Kroxa is so specific and hard to reprint and was just in a secret layer. Heliod was also kind of had a showcase version of the card printed, but is like another card that's really hard. That one, Heliod might be reprinted. I can see them reprinting it, but it's just like so powerful. I can see them.
Kroxa will get a reprint in like a Horizon style set. It'll have to be a special release type of set. I don't think they're going to print that in anything else.
Or like they did the secret layer, right? But that's already kind of come out. Thassa's Oracle, the full art version is $18. I think like looking at what the full art looks like and then looking at the regular and realizing like, oh, it's only $7.50. Thassa's Oracle has a huge ceiling to kind of get to. Ox of Agnos is the same deal, like $12 for the extended art, but like $3 for the regular one. In Modern, it doesn't matter how cool your cards look. It matters that you can play the deck, and like these cards are easy to pick up there. Underworld Breach is in the same boat. That card will forever be insane. Satesian Champion is also really powerful. Like, there's a lot of big depth here, and a lot of it is pretty undervalued considering how powerful we know they can be in Modern or in the future of Modern.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that is all of the cards though that are of significance in Theros.
I'm like looking to see if there's anything. Destiny Spinner. It's already like there's like some uncommons that are in there. Gravebreaker Lamias, if you can get the full art ones for $2, are pretty good as like a long-term hold. There's like some less expensive long-term stuff here that like these are more like in 6 years this card is going to be worth something, not like in 1 year. And if you want to like make a bucket of cards, Gallia of the Endless is actually a card I could say like it's not. The other satyrs get +1/+1 out of haste. And mind you, that could randomly be worth something because at random times we can go to another set with satyrs on it and they're really good. But it's the when you attack with 3 or more creatures, you may discard a card at random if you do draw 2 cards. Yeah, it's like sweet. A powerful dredge mechanic that has seen play in other formats and could be something that does something in Modern.
And well, what's the creature type again?
Satyr.
Yeah, right. So you could. When are we going to get some support for satyr?
Every time we go to Theros.
Yeah, exactly. Satyr Tribal, that card will be so expensive when that actually happens.
Just some more Theros trips and we're there. I'm trying to see if there is anything else. I think that is pretty much the limit. The other one is like Archon of Sun's Grace, but that's like 24 cents. Actually, the fact that Archon of Sun's Grace and Elsbeth Conqueror's Death are both like under 30 cents is like a thing that is true.
I mean, Elspeth that's a good Elspeth.
The Planeswalker is up at the that conquers death for sure is the saga.
Got it.
Yeah, I don't think Rhaegal the Planeswalker Elsbeth will ever see play in Modern. You'd have to be something very specific to make that happen. All right, so that's Theros. Next set we're going to talk about is Ikoria. This one's this is a weird one because it's not it's shallow and not shallow at the same time. But what were you going to say?
I was going to say this is the first set that came out like firmly in pandemic lockdown season. Like this set existed in a time when stores were forced to close and people ordered this, but like even seeing your friends at the very beginning of the pandemic, once it became like a real thing, even seeing your friends was not something most of us were doing right at the beginning. So I don't think this set got opened or drafted hardly at all. I think online probably far more likely. So I don't think there's that much of it lurking around. I think even the sealed product is probably fairly cheap. It's not my favorite set. It does have some very powerful cards though.
I kind of love this set actually. I like the vibe. I love the cards from it. I love how like cool all the monsters are. Yeah, I don't know. I really love Ikoria. I like Mutate a lot. I love the companion mechanic outside of like tournament play. Like companion in EDH is like really dope. I have like 3 companion decks at this point. But that's kind of the first place I want to start. Theros is currently $7. Its full art version is in the teens, right? Kahira, which is the second most expensive of them, and you only need 1 in Modern, right? Like it's a 1 of card. You don't need to play with also. Kahira is the full art version is $7. The rest of the companions are lower. I think you should buy companion cards. Like if for investment purposes, going deep on companion is a great idea. From just making sure you own a good copy of each companion, because at any moment, any of them could be worth money. Kahira is a great example, right? That card 4 months ago, if you were like, is Kahira a good companion? I'd be like, no, it's one of the bad ones, right? It hasn't seen any play since like the rule changed. And now it's the second most played one. Like Yorion's no longer in the top 3. It's Luros, Kahira. Excuse me.
So Kahira is just because if you're playing a control deck without creatures, it's just a free creature late in the game you win with.
Correct. But blue-white control decks are not playing with Snapcaster Mage to play with Kahira.
Huh.
Like they're just like, you know what? Snapcaster Mage isn't worth it versus just having a companion in the companion zone.
Right, because for a control deck, it gets for free out of Kahira what you want, which is I don't ever want to draw my creature I'm going to win with until I've completely shut you down, and then I'm glad to draw it. But if I draw it before then, it's a wasted card in my hand.
I want 9 mana, and I want a hand of 3 counter spells, and I want you to be top decking. And then
exactly, I want to never draw I never want to draw my creature until the turn I need it. So it's almost like sort of the perfect. It's funny that Kahira is like the least menacing creature ever. It's like not a good creature, but it's a good enough creature to win.
The 3/2 Lord. Yep. What's funny too is that like I would be looking at any cat, nightmare, whatever the Kahira things are.
Yeah.
Let me look up Kahira. Just to see like in the future, if there's a control type card with that creature type accidentally, it becomes like fascinating, right? If they put like just because like, oh, I can just free roll this in this deck that I'm already playing Kahira and it's good here. And it's like a Wall of Omens like effect or like Snapcaster Mage, but for 3 mana or something. Like, does that become worth it because you can play them together? And the answer is maybe.
So cool, yeah.
But the point is like at any moment a card could be printed that makes the Zerda, the red-white companion, just like bonkers in the format. At any moment they could print a card that makes Kahuga worth playing. Already, like if the Cascade decks weren't trying to play with 0 drops, it looks like a card that would be interesting. Yorion can bounce back, right? Like it's currently $4 for a floor at 1, but at any moment that control deck might be interesting. Garuda is another option of like that card as a combo. If the right pieces get printed, it can come back. Like all of these companions to me are worth picking up. Gigantha is another one that in a lot of decks might just be a free roll. You just might like, oh, my deck can play with a Gigantha. Why not?
It's kind of a good idea, I think, in general, because I would say, how many years has it been now since they started really kind of arbitrarily printing so many different variations of cards? Was it like started with masterpieces, and then it kind of went from there. So like
it was really Eldraine. Eldraine was the first set with the showcase frames.
Okay, so like so it's been 2+ years now. Well, about 2 years. And it does feel like going forward, there's this interesting phenomenon where if you pick the coolest, rarest foil version of one of those cards, when you're talking about a maybe card, something that is $2 or $3, but is good, and you load up and you get, at least your play set, but if it's only like maybe $3 for that card right now in a full art foil version, maybe you buy 50. Because at any point in time, if one of those gets expensive, the foil full art special version is going to skyrocket differently than the others. It'll just all be on a curve, and that one just ends up at the top of the curve by a pretty wide margin.
Like, I'll tell you this right now, Umari the Collector, the extended art edition, is less than $1. And I know multiple people in the CDH community who are freaking out about cool ideas they can come up with Umari, and that is extending into the EDH community, realizing that this card is dope, not as a companion, but as a commander, right? These are also all just legendary creatures you can have as your commander, and if any of them become good enough, they can become like worthwhile things to have copies of. Karuga's in that same train. What?
So except for the blue-red one.
Except for the blue-red one. Now, the blue-red one can be a modern card, though. Like, that's a card I could see, like, if there's ever a reason for that effect to be playable, like if there's a Charbelcher-like card that has similar requirements as like Lutri that like then makes you want to do that combo, I could like Lutri is another, like Lutri needs a Zerda-like situation where the deck needs to make sense for it, but the moment it does, this card becomes very powerful.
Sure.
So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at on like just the companion mechanic. And then Ikoria has a bunch of other cards, right? You have Shark Typhoon is currently $10, and that card is just like going to be good forever.
Yeah, that's a high for me. That's high on the list of must be picked up cards, and it's expensive, I think, already for a rare. It's that type of card normally would be at this point in time. By now, we'd probably be looking at like $4.
I think that's
in a normal.
I think that's partially because people know, right?
Yeah.
Right. And then like the Triomes are $12, right? I think there's a chance that you kind of already missed the boat on the Triomes.
I think so. Yeah. They were like they were $1 or less at one point.
Right. Like Dranith Magistrate was like a great hate bear. Winota, who's like, if the right human is printed in modern, could just become another, like a modern deck on her own. Like she's that powerful. And so, yeah, I think it just also has cards. I think though the big one to me is the companions. I think like that mechanic is so specifically powerful that, and Winota and those are like the two that to me, like these are cards that are currently underrated and are totally have potential to see play in modern and are worth picking up. I guess as far as uncommons go, Bastions of Remembrance, which is
that's always a very powerful ability. That's the black one, right? That's the Blood Artist black one.
That's the Blood Artist enchantment, right? Correct. And like the fact that card is not killable is a thing that Blood Artist always had a problem with, and that's a pretty easy thing to kind of pick up on as a card that have potential.
Agreed. Yeah, that one's quite good. Winota, I agree. That has definite potential.
All right, so that's all my Ikoria ones. Unless you have something else.
No, I was trying to remember if there was any of the giant dragons, maybe, because they were all not dragons, but mutate legendary 3-color. Because right. Unless those are already more than 10, but I feel like one of those could take off at any point in time.
So the Godzilla versions of them are all pretty expensive, just because those are like commanders that would be really popular. I personally have a soft spot for Vadrok. If I was going to pick one of these, just because it does have Jeskai Ascendancy potential, and like it has that Snapcaster Mage text basically on it. For 4 mana, you can Snapcaster Mage a spell.
It's the 3-color one, or sorry, the blue, white,
Jeskai.
red.
Jeskai, yeah. But I think it's not. I don't think it's modern playable. Like as much as like it's dope in Commander. Nethroi is the Abzan one. I also don't know if that effect is modern playable. It never really even saw us play in Standard. The one that's like vaguely interesting to me is the Rug one. Which I'm trying to find the actual copy of it. Yeah, because the Mardu one is also a Luna, Apex of Witches. who has the text 3 blue-green hybrid blue-blue. When this creature mutates, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land permanent card. Put that card onto the battlefield or into your hand. And you can like use it to get Omniscience into play. Now, I don't think that works. I think that works when it's your commander, right? I think that's like a commander cool trick. And that's why the most expensive commander right now is Aluna, is the like Godzilla version of Aluna, the most expensive card in the set. So like with that in mind, I don't think it's that good. I think it's good there. To me, it's more of a like mutates hard and expensive in that format. I don't think those 5, any of them really have strong potential there. With Vadrock just being a 3-mana 3/3 first strike flyer is like.
I think the other thing to point out then on Ikoria is very similar to the other set with Horizons 2. I think sealed product. I think that it's not that big of a set, and you open a good number of those legendary creatures. Like you get a full art foil of any of those, it almost pays for the box. Like I don't know how much boxes of Ikoria cost right now, but I can't guess that much.
Like Triomes, legendary creature, mythics, and the companions all on their own have like some value, and then you add some of the other stuff that's in the set. I can see that. Yeah, sure.
One for $108 right now. You can just buy a sealed box of it for $108. I mean, that's a steal.
You heard it here. Ozolith is like $15. Yeah, I don't know if it's quite there yet, but holding on to it for a while, a lot of these cards will become more and more larger staples in the format for sure. All right, so that's Ikoria. The next section is Time Spiral Remastered. And Time Spiral Remastered is kind of a set the world forgets came out.
Yeah, agreed.
Like I forgot Time Spiral Remastered happened. And
part of it came out so close to Horizons 2, they just completely pooped on it.
Yeah, which in its defense, it was supposed to come out 6 months before.
Yeah. Like
that was what was supposed to come out during a dead zone of the summer. And then because of COVID, they like delayed it a few months because they just couldn't get the product into the US. And like they were hoping maybe that COVID would have slowed down. But with that in mind, here's a fun fact. How much do you think Tarmogoyf costs right now?
Well, last I checked, it was like $45 maybe. It was like pretty low. I don't know, maybe it's gone down. I guess no one's really playing it. So what is it now? Like
it's seeing 20, like if you go to Jund lists, both Zoomer and Boomer Jund are playing it. It is not
$22?
$20.
Wow. Crazy.
$20 is $20.
$80 gets you a play set. They used to be $100 each.
Yeah, like 4% of the metagame is playing 4 Tarmogoyfs, right? Like Tarmogoyf is still a staple in Jund decks, and that's Zoomer Jund, which doesn't even include Boomer Jund, right? So, like, yeah, I would pick up a playset of Tarmogoyfs tomorrow, if I didn't already have enough of them that I don't need them. Like, for $80 for. To give everyone an understanding who hasn't been playing Modern from the very beginning of the format, when Modern launched, Tarmogoyf was an $80 card. And then it became a $125 card. And then it was a $150 card. Then it got reprinted and got back down to 70. Then went back to 110. Then went back down to 70 when it got printed again. Then it was at 100 for a long time. And now it's $20.
It's just, I mean, the format is really fast. So a 2-mana good stuff creature is great. But it's not fast enough to beat a lot of the things in the format. I mean, it's wonderful, but
I like it's seeing 4 of play in a deck that's 5% of the metagame online, right? So it's, to me, I don't know if I agree that it's not good. I think 2 things have happened. I think what you're saying is what a lot of people believe, right? You're stating the fact that like, I'm hearing about all these decks that Tarmogoyf isn't in. Tarmogoyf can't be good anymore. Jund's bad. Like every time you talk to Michael, he'll just tell you that Jund is bad. He's wrong. It continues to perform very well. But like, there's like kind of this like old status of like, oh yeah, Jund decks aren't very good. They just like exist forever and people are really good at them. And that's why they do well. And like Tarmogoyf is a 4 in all of those decks and still is still a very good. And it's in the Luros versions because you can play it with Luros. I think that's one of the things that helps it.
That's really significant. Yeah.
I think it was reprinted pretty heavily, right? We've just now gotten a lot of printings of it. It's not the exciting, expensive card in the format the way that Ragavan is, right? There's higher choke points than Tarmogoyf. The other thing I think is just like, if you wanted your playset of Tarmogoyfs, you could get them. There's just not been enough printings of it that all the people that were interested in getting them could get them. And now the problem is getting Ragavans, not Tarmogoyfs.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, Goyf was that card forever. And as you mentioned, every time you reprint it, there was like a running joke almost with Tarmogoyf as like the marquee reprint card. And they did it so many times that it just finally went down to $20, I guess.
Yep. And I think it being on the time spiral sheet is like the final thing that put it into the cheapness. The other cards, like I was going to mention Primeval Titan earlier. $4.
Best creature ever printed.
Part of that is because of how expensive it was in the secret layer. Like the secret layer, plus it being banned in another format.
Where was Primetime is banned in EDH? No.
Yeah, it's been banned in EDH forever. But it was banned. I thought it was banned somewhere else. I might be wrong. It might have been. Oh, it was Uro. It was Uro that was banned right before it, because it was in the Uro secret layer. And it was like Primeval Titan, who's banned in EDH and who's banned in EDH, and Uro, who got banned in Modern and was banned in Standard and banned in Pioneer, I believe. And so like it was just like this one's for, and then the other card in it is Frost Titan, right? So it was like,
I wonder if you were to go through every banning in the history of Modern, what the most absurd banning actually is, or just the history of Magic at that. I wonder if you were to go back to the beginning of Magic, every banning that's ever happened. Just what is the most completely absurd? Like you look at it and you're just like, what? This card was good enough to get banned? How?
There's old stuff. There's isn't there like a flying 2/2 that was banned or something like that?
No, it was they banned it was in one of the reprint sets recently. 1 blue, 2 colorless, flying 3/4, beginning your upkeep, lose 1 life.
Saren Ifrit, the Ifrit. Or Jin?
Yes, Serum did Ifrit, I think, because the Jin. That's the card, though. Anyway, I think that got banned.
Sure, right? Like old cards. I don't think if you're taking the context of old Magic, it's hard to figure out like what they were. You know what they're thinking. Cards were terrible then. Modern, I think, is an interesting conversation. I think the dumbest card, like the least powerful card to have been banned, is maybe Bloodbraid Elf.
Yeah, that one's pretty nuts. Bloodbraid Elf is...
And to have, for how long it was on the ban list. Wild Nicodle as well.
That one, that's got to be crazier than Bloodbraid. Bloodbraid's a powerful card. Nicodle is like... it's like this conditional 1-mana 3/3.
Yeah.
It's like so funny.
Like Ancestral Visions was up there, right? But that one, like, it does see play and is good. And like, it's also understandable why they banned it. Like Nicodle was like... in the first 6 months of Modern, Zoo was too good, but it also had like
Punishing Fire.
Like it got banned at the same time as Punishing Fire and Green Sun Zenith, like all got banned together, right? And those were the problem cards probably, and not Wild Nicodle, the thing that dies the lightning bolt. Like imagine Splinter Twin, Birthing Pod, and Wild Nicodle being in the format. What of those 3 cards sees play? And Bloodbraid Elf with Deathrite Shaman.
Yeah, so wild. Like Deathrite, one of the most powerful creatures ever.
Yeah.
How close to the top
Primeval
list do you think Deathrite is?
Yawgmoth's only $20. That's one thing to point out, is that like Time Spiral Remastered did do that. That is, and by the way, that is where I can see them doing more reprinting Modern Horizons cards in ways that they need to, is going to Remastered sets. If they did like Innistrad Remastered, like they could just have a time spiral sheet. Like Remastered sets could have time spiral sheets on them.
Yeah, that's a good point. And then
I think they should, right? Like that, and that way the sets are a cool draft format. It's a little bit of a new spin on what that draft was. Kind of the way Strixhaven had it. Like Strixhaven, the best part of Strixhaven is the Mystical Archives. The reason Strixhaven, if you look at the value of cards from that set, is really low is because Mystical Archives and Demonic Tutors were in boxes. I think stuff like Mystical Archive was so popular, I can see Wizards doing it again. And I think that's where you get a lot of these Modern Horizon cards to be able to be reprinted without having them to be in Standard. Especially because it helps them with Horizons to get it onto Arena. Other cards, Eternal Witness only $5 for the alternate art version.
I mean, it's classic. Always gonna be good.
I think the Primeval Times $4 is insane. Thoughtseize is currently only $15.
Okay. That's not, it's cheaper than peak Thoughtseize, but it was down to like, it was down to like 17 kind of recently, and I think it's been that like zone for a while now, couple years, I think.
When I asked this online, a lot of people brought up Snapcaster Mage. Snapcaster Mage for $50. It's not what it was at. It was at like 80, 70, but I think $50 is still not cheap. Yeah. I don't think that's right now I would even say Snapcaster Mage isn't seeing a lot of play because it's not because of Kihira. So even then it like is a little worrisome. Walking Ballista being at $15 though.
Yeah, that card's like a combo finisher. It's like, yeah, Ballista's really good. It's a really unique card.
And then, and I have a conversation on Walking Bliss in a second, but Karn is currently at 35, and it's been 80 for a long time. And that's why Snapcaster at 47 is interesting. And I think that's the difference is 30 to 47. Like that's something that is like Walking Bliss and Karn kind of pointed this. Paper Magic is different than Moto. It's a lot different than Moto, to be honest.
Even the results you're talking about.
What a format looks like when it's in paper. And there's a few reasons. One is playing stuff like Walking Ballista decks is actually really hard on Moto. The timing constraints of going through that infinite combo and people making you play it out makes Heliod decks a lot harder to do well, especially when they are not superly well favored. Add the fact that you now have like Karn decks, like Tron is a popular GP deck. It's not a popular online deck because it's like relatively not the best deck, but it's a not expensive deck where the main choke points is Karn. So Karn being only $35 is a really easy buy-in to one of the like a great deck to play in Modern forever. You might not win a GP, but not everyone's trying to win a GP. You're trying to have fun in a tournament, and Tron is going to ruin people's day in a great way often. And like looking at decks that like maybe haven't performed well because they aren't doing well on when most of Magic is being played, most of Modern Magic is playing Moto, but could do well in Vegas and could do well at SCG Con is like exactly where I would want to be.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I do think that the return of Paper Magic is going to remind people of which decks they'd like to play in person versus the online stuff. And I mean, 35 for Karn is very cheap. That card was like $70 to $100 for a long, long time. And it's very good. Even when they print something like Ugin, which is great, it doesn't invalidate Karn. There's just not very many options that even really compete with it. So they're not going to just keep printing 6 to 8 drop, crazy, insane, colorless walkers. We'll get some, but it's a very specific that's a very specific ask.
Yep, agreed.
High mana cost, high power, colorless. So I think buying Karn makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, for sure. And that's it. That's what we're talking about. Those are some of the cards that we've like noticed just with rotation happening in the last year of printings are things to keep in mind on as you want to look at buying new cards. If you do end up wanting to buy the cards today, please hit the TCG player link below. It helps the podcast out. They just know we sent you and they send us some love. Also check out Patreon. If you haven't checked it out, we are coming out with a tabletop game called Battle Bosses. It plays like Magic, so if you like Magic, you'll like Battle Bosses. But you get these really cool minifigures that kind of play and are the bosses you're playing as they fight each other. Definitely check that out at kess.co/battlebosses. And then also I'm dressing every day of this month in costume for Halloween. I am currently dressed as Neo from The Matrix. And tomorrow I think I'm going to be Sora. By the time you hear this, that'll be 5 days ago. In honor of Sora being added to Super Smash Brothers. Ben doesn't even know what Sora is.
I have no clue. I don't know what Sora is.
Wow, what a not nerd. We don't have to talk about that.
Super Smash? I know Super Smash Bros. I played a lot of Super Smash.
Last week, Super Smash Brothers Ultimate, which is the current edition, released the final character that will ever be added to the game. It was Sora. And Sora is the lead character of Kingdom Hearts.
Okay.
Which is the Disney Final Fantasy super licensed property where like you play as a Final Fantasy character but going through each Disney movie.
Yep. I know about it.
So yeah.
Kingdom Hearts.
It's exciting. I have I don't know where it went. I have a cool wig. But yeah, but I'm doing it for charity. There's a Tiltify link below for Planned Parenthood. Please donate. It's a great cause. They do a lot of really, really good things, and it's super appreciated if you can help me hit the goal of $1,000. And other than that, Ben's making albums. He's making music.
Go check it out, guys. The actual best place to check it out, if you don't want to go to Spotify or wherever, look on my Twitter bio. You can see there's a link. It'll pre-save the next song that's coming out, or it'll just take you to it if it's already out, which it will be when you hear this. And then just go to youtube.com/Ben Bateman. That's what it is now. It's all music content over there. I do a live stream once a week on Mondays, just kind of talking about my life. And otherwise, that's where the music videos go, the lyric videos, all that stuff. So that's where the updates are. Thanks for listening and thanks for watching, everybody. We will see you same time, same place next week.
Thanks, everybody.
This has been a production of Time Traveler Media, sending podcasts into the future.